Hello, everybody. We are here with Eric Carty, your water and sewer manager. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well, Tom. Thanks as always for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. We always love talking to you about what's going on at the DPW and, of course, weather trends, and we'll do a little bit of that today. Before we get into the weather trends, can you talk about what's been happening at the DPW? I know you guys have been very busy, and now we're getting into construction season as well.
Yeah, we pretty much lucked out in terms of major snowstorms this year, which was good. So the guys, there was some pretty decent icing events that they were out quite a bit, but for the most part, didn't receive any huge amounts of snow, which was good. We have had a lot of rain, so we've been dealing with some of the flooding issues. We've also had a lot of leaks lately, so the guys have been dealing with that and getting the system back up and running, including a pretty big one that we had several weeks ago that pretty much affected the whole town. So thankfully, those only happen every 3 or 4 years because they just really wreak havoc with the system. Other than that, we're now into spring mode. We're getting close to the marathon, so all focus is on that. Both the highway, water, and sewer departments will be out there. Will be for us. We go out and we check all the water gates, make sure they're all ready. They're going to be paving downtown this week, so we'll make sure that all those boxes are leveled off and good to go, and check that everything's ready in case there is an emergency. Be able to respond in a timely manner.
I'm curious, with the lack of snow, how are the water levels?
So even though we haven't had a lot of snow, we've had a decent amount of rain. January, we had almost 10 inches of rain, which was significant. We had just about 2 weeks ago, too, we had what was then forecast to be a pretty good snowstorm, turned out to be all rain. So we had almost a total of 3.5 inches of liquid between the snow that we did get melted and the rain that we had. So for the most part, we're starting out well with recharge. I was just noting over on Maspinock, we're already at a higher level than we were for the entirety of last summer. Last summer was the lowest that I've ever seen the lake since I've been over there, and it was always a foot below the spillway. It never got any higher, and we're already, approaching the spillway, about 8 inches away from being full, which is a good sign. It's been quite the event. I'm sure everyone's seen it out in California. They basically call it an atmospheric river, where they just had storm after storm with up in the mountains. It's been snow. They've had unprecedented amount of snow. They've had over 400 inches in some spots, and that beginning to melt. They're finally out of a severe drought for the first time in 3 years. And as those storms they matriculate their way across the country, and we end up being the beneficiary, if you want to call it that, of what's left over. Thankfully, we haven't got it to the extent that they have, but we've had enough rains that have been able to sustain the water so far. So the big thing is we always can have a wet spring and then get into summer and can go right to dry. So every year when we'll be ready to do our mandatory restrictions, which are required by the state, and I always put a letter out when I send that notification out, just to remind everybody we can't take it for granted that because we've had a wet spring, it's going to stay that way. Still need to be very conscious of our use and make sure that we're using it wisely, because the weather can turn, as we know, pretty quickly into drought. And it's forecast to be a warmer than normal summer. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think California got all the snow that we were supposed to get, or at least took ours as well. So that's good. It's been pretty wet so far, but yeah, of course, you don't know if it's going to be dry or not for the spring and the summer here. What's your long-term predictions? You said the spring's going to be warmer than normal. Can you give us an idea of how warm you think it's going to be, and what you think the spring and possibly summer is going to be like?
Yeah, so I follow quite a few people that they like to go back and they look at what they call analogs, and they look at similar years and how they set up, how the winter played out, how the spring is, and how the systems are setting up around the country. And right now, their forecast is for a wetter and actually kind of cooler than normal spring. But then when we hit summer, for that to not totally dry up, but be drier on average, and then warmer than average through the summer. So they're pretty much right so far in this March. March has been pretty wet and definitely colder. We've had some 60-degree days, and actually got out golfing a week or so ago. But then we're back here. We're in the 30s again today. So it depends on the day. But with those storms coming in from the West Coast, there looks like we'll be alternating back and forth between a little bit of storminess in at least through to mid-April.
But we're not getting any snow. I think that's for sure, right?
Pretty much. Well, hopefully that's done. Although you never know. May 1977. I was a kid, but I remember that well.
It's
quite a
true.
surprise.
All right. So you're saying a cooler, possibly wetter spring and a dry, maybe hotter summer.
Warmer, yeah, warmer than average is the current forecast by the experts.
All right. I like it. Eric, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. And as always, it's good to catch up with you, and we'll do it again soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Tom.